I've always loved old movie theaters. The musty smell of aged velvet, the worn seats, the history in every creak of the floorboards. It felt like stepping back in time. So when I heard about the Regal Crown Cinema, a relic from the 1920s that had recently reopened, I had to check it out. The theater was tucked away in a forgotten corner of the city, down a narrow alley that seemed to have escaped the march of time. The marquee, missing several letters, proclaimed tonight's feature: The Phantom of the Opera. Perfect. A classic film in a classic theater. I arrived just as the sun dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows that seemed to cling to the buildings. The ticket booth was manned by an elderly woman with eyes that looked like they'd seen too much. She handed me a ticket with a trembling hand, her gaze lingering on me for a moment too long. Inside, the lobby was a marvel of decaying grandeur. Faded posters of long-forgotten films lined the walls, and a massive chandelier hung precariously from the ceiling, its crystals tinkling softly in the drafty air. The concession stand was manned by a sullen teenager who barely looked up as he handed me my popcorn. The auditorium itself was cavernous, its rows of seats disappearing into the gloom. I found a seat near the middle, settling in with a sigh. As the lights dimmed and the projector flickered to life, I noticed I was the only person in the theater. Odd, but not entirely unexpected for an old movie on a weeknight. The film began, and I lost myself in the haunting strains of the organ music. But as the movie played on, I became aware of a strange sensation, a prickling at the back of my neck. I turned, scanning the darkened rows behind me. Nothing, just empty seats and shadows. Shrugging it off, I turned back to the screen, but the feeling wouldn't go away. It was as if someone, or something, was watching me. I glanced around again, and that's when I saw it. A figure, seated a few rows behind me. It was barely more than a silhouette, but I could feel its gaze boring into me. I shifted uncomfortably, trying to focus on the film, but my eyes kept drifting back to the figure. It hadn't moved. It was just there, watching. My heart began to race, and I told myself I was being ridiculous. Maybe it was just another patron who had slipped in late. But then why hadn't I heard them? I turned back to the screen, forcing myself to concentrate. The movie had reached its climax. The Phantom unmasked, his face a twisted mask of anguish. And then the screen went black. The theater was plunged into darkness, the only sound the whir of the projector. Panic welled up inside me. The darkness was suffocating, pressing in from all sides. And then, I heard it. The soft shuffle of footsteps moving slowly down the aisle. Closer and closer. "Hello?" I called out, my voice echoing in the vast space. No response, just the relentless approach of those footsteps. I fumbled for my phone, the small screen casting a weak glow. I pointed it towards the aisle, the beam of light cutting through the darkness. The figure was gone. The footsteps stopped. My breath came in short gasps, my pulse pounding in my ears. I stood, the urge to flee overwhelming. But as I turned towards the exit, I saw it. A flash of movement in the corner of my eye. The figure, now standing at the end of the row, blocking my path. It was closer now, close enough that I could make out details. The ragged clothing, the sunken eyes, the skeletal hands reaching out towards me. I stumbled back, tripping over a seat and crashing to the floor. My phone skittered away, its light extinguished. In the darkness, I could hear it moving closer. The rustle of fabric, the creak of old leather. I scrambled to my feet, heart in my throat, and ran. Down the aisle, up the steps, through the lobby, and out into the night. I didn't stop until I was several blocks away, my lungs burning, my mind reeling. I glanced back, half expecting to see the figure standing in the street. But there was nothing. Just the dark, empty alley and the faint glow of the theater's marquee. I never went back to the Regal Crown Cinema. Some places are better left forgotten.